When billionaire CEO Vivian Hart kissed a random black man at her own engagement gala, she thought she was just escaping the cameras. But she had no idea she was about to destroy everything she'd ever known. What started as a desperate moment of rebellion would expose the darkest betrayal from the people closest to her, unravel a web of lies that went back months, and force her to choose between the fortune that defined her and the love that could save her. But as the viral video exploded across every screen in Manhattan and her perfect world crumbled around her, Vivian discovered that Malcolm Reed wasn't just any security guard, and her mother and fiancé had been playing a game far more dangerous than she ever imagined. The kiss that was supposed to set her free might have just sealed both their fates. Because in a world where money is power and reputation is everything, some secrets are worth killing for. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story of love, betrayal, and revenge is about to get a whole lot messier. The silk gown felt like a cage. Vivian Hart stood in front of her bedroom mirror while Sloane, her chief of staff, worked the zipper up her spine. The pale blue fabric hugged her curves perfectly, too perfectly, like everything else in her life. "You look stunning," Sloane said, stepping back to check the dress. "The cameras will love this color." Vivian's stomach twisted. The cameras, right. She touched the diamond necklace at her throat, cold as ice. "Run through tonight's plan one more time." Sloane pulled out her tablet. "Cocktails at 7. You'll greet the major donors first, the Westbrooks, the Connors, and Mrs. Chen. Your mother wants photos with the board members before 8. Then Graham gives his speech about your engagement, followed by the formal announcement." Each word felt like a nail in a coffin. Vivian closed her eyes. "How many reporters?" 12 confirmed, plus the society, bloggers. Sloane's voice grew gentle. "Viv, you okay?" No, she wasn't okay. She hadn't been okay in months, not since her mother and Graham had tag-teamed her into this perfect match. Not since she'd realized her life had become a chess game where she was just another piece. "I'm fine." Vivian lied. She grabbed her clutch and headed for the door. "Let's get this over with." The elevator ride down to the hotel's grand ballroom felt endless. Vivian stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls. 29 years old, CEO of a billion-dollar tech company, and she felt like a puppet on strings. The ballroom doors opened, and the world hit her like a wave. Soft jazz music, the clink of champagne glasses, laughter that sounded forced and bright. 200 of Manhattan's elite, all dressed to the nines, all here to watch her engagement become official. "Vivian, darling!" Her mother, Claudia Hart, swept over in a cloud of expensive perfume and pearls. "You look perfect. Graham is by the bar, charming the Westbrooks. Go join him." Claudia's smile was razor sharp. She'd orchestrated this whole evening like a military operation. Nothing left to chance, nothing real allowed to slip through. Vivian moved through the crowd, smiling and nodding. She air-kissed donors. She laughed at jokes that weren't funny. She played her part perfectly, just like she'd been trained to do since childhood. Graham Kincaid stood near the bar, tall and handsome in his tuxedo. His blonde hair was perfectly styled. His smile was camera-ready. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread about successful young executives. "There's my beautiful fiancé," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist for the photographers. His hand was possessive, too tight. "You're glowing tonight." Vivian forced a smile. Something felt off about Graham tonight. He seemed too confident, too pleased with himself, like he knew a secret she didn't. "Ladies and gentlemen," a board member's voice called out. "If I could have your attention for just a moment." Vivian's blood went cold. The speech was supposed to be at 9. It wasn't even 8:30. The older man, Mr. Peterson, stood near the stage with a microphone. "I wanted to share some exciting news about our company's future. As many of you know, strategic partnerships are vital in today's market." Vivian felt Graham's hand tighten on her back. His smile never wavered, but something dark flashed in his eyes. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Just listen," he murmured back. But Vivian wasn't listening anymore. She was watching how Graham nodded along like he'd heard this speech before, watching how her mother beamed with satisfaction, watching how the board members all looked at her like she was a prize being handed over. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sloan. Need to talk. Now. Found something. Vivian's chest tightened. I need some air. Stay put, Graham said quietly. Peterson's almost done. But Vivian was already moving. She slipped through the crowd, smiling and excusing herself. Her heels clicked on the marble floor as she headed for the quieter side hallway where the staff entrances were. Sloan appeared like magic, grabbing Vivian's arm. We need to talk, now. She pulled Vivian into a narrow service corridor that smelled like linen and cleaning supplies. What's wrong? Vivian's heart was pounding. Sloan held up her phone. The screen showed a screenshot of a gossip blog. Someone leaked your private emails. Vivian stared at the screen. There, in black and white, was part of an email she'd drafted but never sent. It was from last week, when she'd been struggling with cold feet about the engagement. The words were intimate, worried, personal. I don't know if I can do this. Graham feels like a stranger. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a business transaction to him. I never sent that email, Vivian whispered. I know, which means someone accessed your phone or your cloud account. Someone close to you. Sloane's face was grim. Viv, this went live an hour ago. It's already got 2,000 shares. The hallway seemed to tilt. Who would do this? I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they know details that only someone in your inner circle would know. Sloan paused. The timing isn't random. Someone wanted this out tonight, before the announcement. Vivian leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. Her perfect, controlled life was crumbling. And somewhere in that ballroom, someone she trusted had betrayed her. I have to get back, she said finally. Viv, I have to. If I disappear now, it'll make everything worse. She walked back toward the ballroom on shaking legs. The crowd looked the same, but everything felt different now. How many people had seen the leaked email? How many were whispering about her behind their champagne glasses? Graham was still by the bar, laughing with a group of executives. When he saw her, his eyes lit up. There you are! Come meet! We need to talk, Vivian interrupted. Privately. Graham's smile faltered for just a second. Of course, excuse us, he told the group. They found a small side lounge off the main ballroom. Vivian closed the door and turned to face him. Someone leaked my private emails, she said. Graham's face went carefully neutral. What? That's terrible. Which emails? The one about having doubts, about feeling like a business transaction. She watched his face closely. I never sent that email, Graham. I saved it as a draft. Well, then someone hacked your account. We should call the cybersecurity team first thing Monday. His voice was smooth, concerned. Perfect. Too perfect. The thing is, Vivian said slowly, that email mentioned details I only told you. About feeling like a stranger to you. About the way you kiss me like you're performing for an audience. Graham's jaw tightened slightly. Vivian, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Why would I leak something that makes me look bad? I don't know. Why would you? He stepped closer, and for the first time, his mask slipped. Don't ruin tonight. You need me, Vivian. Your board, your mother, your shareholders. They all believe in this match. Don't throw it away because you're paranoid. The words hit her like a slap. Not the content, the tone. Cold, calculating. Like she was a problem to be managed, not a person to be loved. I need to think, she said. No. His voice was sharp now. You need to go back out there and smile. We're announcing our engagement in 20 minutes. Don't make me look like a fool. Before Vivian could respond, the door opened. Her mother swept in, elegant and imposing. There you are. People are asking where you've been. Claudia's eyes were sharp, taking in the tension between them. Is everything all right? Someone leaked Vivian's private emails, Graham said. She's upset. Claudia's face went ice cold. How private? Private enough, Vivian said quietly. Her mother moved closer, and suddenly, Vivian felt cornered by the two people who were supposed to love her most. "Listen to me carefully," Claudia said. "Whatever happened with those emails, we'll handle it later. But tonight, you will go out there and make this engagement official. This marriage protects you, Vivian. It protects your reputation, your company, and our family name. Stop being dramatic." The words cut deep. Dramatic. That's what her mother always called it when Vivian had feelings, when she wanted something different, when she tried to be human instead of perfect. "I just need a minute," Vivian said. "You've had enough minutes," Claudia snapped. "The photographers are waiting. Graham's family is waiting. The board is waiting. Don't you dare embarrass us now." Vivian looked between them, her fiancé and her mother, two people who had never asked what she wanted, two people who were planning her life like she wasn't even in the room. "Fine," she whispered. They walked back into the ballroom together. But as they reached the edge of the crowd, Vivian felt like she couldn't breathe. The faces around her looked predatory. The cameras looked hungry. A reporter thrust a microphone toward her. "Miss Hart, any comment on the leaked emails about doubts regarding your engagement?" The room went quiet. Everyone was staring, waiting. "Vivian," Graham said under his breath, "smile." But she couldn't smile. She couldn't breathe. She looked around desperately for an escape route, for somewhere to go, for someone who might actually care if she was okay. That's when she saw him. He was standing near the security checkpoint by the side entrance. Tall, with dark skin and kind eyes. He wore a crisp hotel uniform and stood with the quiet confidence of someone who knew how to handle problems without making them worse. He was watching the crowd, doing his job. But when his eyes met hers across the room, something passed between them. Recognition of distress, understanding without words. Vivian made a decision that would change everything. She walked toward him, leaving Graham and her mother behind. The cameras followed her movement, confused. The crowd watched, whispering. "Excuse me," she said when she reached him. "I need help with an intrusive guest." Malcolm Reed, though she didn't know his name yet, looked at her carefully. He could see the panic in her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly. He'd worked hotel security long enough to recognize someone in trouble. "What can I do for you?" he asked quietly. Instead of answering with words, Vivian reached up, grabbed the lapels of his uniform jacket, and kissed him. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate, fierce, real. The kind of kiss that said, "Save me and help me, and I'm drowning." The ballroom exploded. Gasps echoed off the high ceiling. Phones appeared like magic, everyone recording. Camera flashes went off like fireworks. Graham's voice cut through the noise. "What the hell?" But Malcolm didn't push Vivian away. He didn't try to capitalize on the moment. Instead, he gently placed his hands on her shoulders and stepped back just enough to look in her eyes. "Are you safe?" he asked. 4 simple words, but they hit Vivian like a revelation, because no one, not Graham, not her mother, not her board members, no one had asked her that question in years. "No," she whispered. Malcolm nodded once, then he did something extraordinary. He positioned himself between Vivian and the cameras, using his body to shield her. Without drama, without force, he guided her toward a staff-only door. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's get you somewhere quiet." They slipped through the door as chaos erupted behind them. In the narrow service hallway, away from the noise and lights, Vivian finally broke down. Her hands were shaking. Her breathing was shallow. The weight of the last few months, the lies, the pressure, the betrayal, it all crashed down at once. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into this." Malcolm leaned against the wall, studying her face. "What's your name?" Vivian Hart." "I'm Malcolm." He paused. "You want to tell me what's really going on, Vivian Hart?" She looked at this stranger who had somehow become her lifeline. This man who didn't know her money or her company or her reputation, who had asked if she was safe when no one else had bothered. "I'm trapped," she said simply, "and I just realized I've been trapped for a very long time." Malcolm nodded like this made perfect sense. "The engagement party out there, that's your trap?" "Part of it. My fiancé, ex-fiancé." She stopped, realizing what she'd just said, what she'd just done. Oh God, I just ended my engagement by kissing a stranger. Did you want to end it? The question was so direct, so honest, that it cut through all her confusion. Yes, but I didn't know how. Seems like you figured it out. Despite everything, Vivian almost smiled. I guess I did. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Malcolm's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. What's wrong? Vivian asked. My supervisor says there was an incident involving a guest and I need to report to his office first thing tomorrow. Malcolm's jaw tightened. I could lose my job over this. The guilt hit Vivian like a punch to the stomach. In her desperation to escape, she dragged an innocent person into her mess. I'll explain everything to your manager. I'll make sure they know you were just helping me. That's not how this works, Malcolm said gently. Rich lady kisses the help. Guess who gets blamed? Before Vivian could respond, the door burst open. Sloane appeared, breathless and frantic. Viv, thank God. We need to get you out of here, now. She looked at Malcolm suspiciously. Who's this? This is Malcolm. He helped me. Vivian turned to him. I'm sorry, I really am. Malcolm studied her face for a long moment. Are you going to be okay? It was such a simple question. But the fact that he cared enough to ask, that he was worried about her well-being instead of what she could do for him, it meant everything. I don't know, she said honestly. That's okay. Not knowing is better than lying to yourself. Sloane grabbed Vivian's arm. We have to go. The paparazzi are already gathering outside. As they hurried toward the service exit, Vivian looked back once. Malcolm was standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, watching them leave. He looked calm, steady, real in a way that nothing in her life had been for months. Then the door closed between them and he was gone. The ride home was a blur of Sloane's voice on the phone, damage control, crisis management, but all Vivian could think about was the way Malcolm had asked if she was safe. The way he protected her without asking for anything in return. By the time they reached her penthouse, her phone was exploding with notifications, text messages, missed calls, social media mentions. The video of the kiss was already trending on 3 platforms. Vivian sat on her couch and watched herself kiss a stranger on repeat. But it didn't feel like watching a stranger. It felt like watching herself wake up for the first time in years. What now? Sloane asked gently. Vivian touched her lips, still feeling the echo of that desperate, honest kiss. Now I figure out how to live in the mess I just made. Outside her penthouse windows, the city sparkled with a million lights. Somewhere out there, Malcolm was probably watching the same video, wondering what kind of chaos she brought into his quiet life. I need to see him again, she said suddenly. Viv, I need to apologize properly, and I need to make sure he doesn't lose his job because of me. She stood up, feeling stronger than she had all evening. I made this mess. I'm going to fix it. For the first time in months, Vivian Hart was making her own choices, and it felt terrifying and wonderful and completely, absolutely right. Vivian stood in the quiet conference room at the hotel, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Malcolm sat across from her, his expression careful and guarded. The morning light streaming through the windows felt harsh. Everything about this moment felt exposed and raw. Will you help me for 1 week? She asked. The words came out softer than she'd intended. Just until I can figure out how to handle all this. Malcolm's eyes went hard. Help you, or be used by you? The question hit like a slap, but it was fair. She'd already dragged him into her mess without asking. She'd already cost him a day's pay and put his job at risk. Help me, she said finally. I don't want to use anybody else ever again. What exactly are you asking for? Vivian took a shaky breath. A simple public cover story. That we were already seeing each other quietly. So I can end my engagement without looking like I lost my mind and kissed a random stranger. Malcolm was quiet for a long moment. And what do I get out of this besides more drama? Nothing. I can't pay you. You already made that clear. I can't promise it won't be messy. All I can promise is that I won't throw you under the bus if things go wrong. Big of you. The sarcasm stung, but she deserved it. You're right to be angry. I acted like a selfish, spoiled brat who didn't care who got hurt. Something in Malcolm's face softened slightly. You were trapped. I get that. But I won't be your prop, Vivian. I won't smile and pretend to be your grateful rescue project. I don't want a prop. I want... She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. What do you want? Someone real. Someone who won't lie to me or use me or trade me like a business asset. She met his eyes. I think that's you, but I could be wrong. Malcolm studied her face. If we do this, we do it my way. No payment, no lies about who I am. And if your people try to make me look bad to protect you, I walk. No discussion. Okay? And if you decide you want to go back to your fiancé to save face, you tell me straight. Don't leave me hanging while you figure out what's convenient. I'm not going back to Graham. Ever. You say that now, but when your family and your board and all your rich friends start pressuring you, then I'll need someone to remind me who I really am underneath all that pressure. Malcolm was quiet for a long moment. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Board chair, he said. Vivian felt her stomach drop. Answer it. I can handle whatever they say. But as Malcolm watched her face while she took the call, he wasn't sure that was true. The board meeting was every bit as brutal as Vivian had expected. 12 people in expensive suits sat around a mahogany table, staring at her like she'd committed a crime. Her mother sat at the far end, her face a mask of cold disappointment. The engagement is on pause, Vivian said calmly, due to personal reasons that I won't be discussing. Mr. Peterson, the board chair, leaned forward. Vivian, this isn't just personal anymore. The company's stock dropped 3 points yesterday. Our investors are concerned about stability. My personal life doesn't affect my ability to run this company. Doesn't it? Her mother's voice was ice cold. You created a public scandal. You embarrassed Graham's family. You made us all look foolish. I ended an engagement that wasn't working. That's not a crime. You kissed another man at your engagement party. Mr. Peterson's voice rose. In front of every major investor and donor we have. Vivian felt the old familiar pressure to apologize, to smooth things over, to make herself small. Instead, she straightened her shoulders. Yes, I did. And I'm not sorry. The room went dead silent. We think, her mother said carefully, that the best path forward is for you to appear with Graham at the charity luncheon tomorrow. Show a united front. Let people see that you've worked things out. No. Vivian, I said no, Mother. Graham and I are finished. I'm not going to pretend otherwise for the cameras. She stood up and walked out of the room, her heart pounding. Through the glass walls, she could see Malcolm waiting by the elevator in a simple dark suit. When he saw her, he straightened. How did it go? He asked as the elevator doors closed behind them. About as well as you'd expect. Vivian's hands were shaking. They want me to do a unity photo with Graham tomorrow. And you said? I said no. Malcolm looked surprised. Really? Really. She managed a small smile. Turns out it feels good to say no. But outside the building, the paparazzi were waiting. Dozens of them, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. Vivian, are you and Graham getting back together? Is this a publicity stunt? What's the security guard's name? Malcolm moved smoothly between Vivian and the crowd, not pushing or shoving, just creating space. His voice was calm and professional. Please step back. Give the lady some room. They made it to the car, but Vivian could see the cameras still clicking through the windows. her phone was already buzzing with notifications. "They're calling you CEO's new man," she said, scrolling through the comments. Her face went pale. "Some of these comments are really ugly." Malcolm's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "People say ugly things when they're behind screens. Doesn't make it true." That evening, as Malcolm walked her to her apartment door, Vivian lingered in the hallway. "Thank you," she said softly. "For not taking advantage today, for not making this about you." Malcolm's expression was unreadable. "Don't thank me yet." "What do you mean?" "This is day one, Vivian. It's going to get harder, and when it does, when your family really starts applying pressure, when your board threatens your job, when every person in your world tells you to come to your senses." He paused. "That's when I'll find out who you really are." Vivian felt a chill of fear, not of Malcolm, but of herself, of the possibility that when push came to shove, she might choose safety over truth. "What if I disappoint you?" "Then you disappoint me, but at least we'll both know where we stand." He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the hallway with her doubts and her hopes tangled together like a knot she couldn't undo. The next morning brought new challenges. Sloan arrived early with coffee and a grim expression. Malcolm's supervisor called the hotel. He's been suspended without pay, pending an investigation into his conduct. Vivian's coffee went cold in her hands. "They fired him?" "Suspended. Big difference. But the hotel is scared of bad publicity." When Malcolm picked her up an hour later, Vivian could see the tension in his shoulders. He drove in silence until she couldn't stand it anymore. "I heard about your job. I can call the hotel owner. I can—" "No." His voice was sharp. "If you rescue me with money or influence, then everyone will say I'm bought and paid for. I need to handle this myself." "But it's not fair. You were just doing your job." "Fair doesn't matter. Perception matters." Malcolm pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and turned to face her. "This is what I was afraid of. Your problems becoming my problems. Your reputation affecting mine." Vivian felt tears prick at her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be careful, because every choice you make for the next few days affects both of us now." They went into the coffee shop, both quiet and tense. Vivian ordered something simple, determined not to draw attention. But halfway through their coffee, she noticed someone in the corner with their phone pointed at their table. "We're being recorded," she whispered. Malcolm glanced casually over his shoulder. "Yeah, I saw them when we came in." "Should we leave?" "Running looks guilty. Just be normal." But normal felt impossible when she could see the lens pointed at them. When she knew that every word, every gesture would be analyzed and picked apart online. "How do you stay so calm?" she asked. "Practice and perspective." Malcolm's voice was quiet. "This isn't life or death, it's just noise." "It doesn't feel like noise." "Because you're not used to people having opinions about your personal life. I am." The simple truth of that hit her hard. Malcolm had probably faced judgment and assumptions his whole life. Meanwhile, she'd been protected by money and privilege from most forms of criticism. "I'm sorry," she said again. "Stop apologizing and start learning." That evening, they had dinner at a small diner Malcolm chose. It was nothing like the restaurants Vivian usually went to. No tablecloths or wine list or servers who knew her name. Just clean tables, honest food, and normal people having normal conversations. "I've never been anywhere like this," Vivian admitted. "What do you mean?" "Somewhere without, I don't know, pretense. Where people aren't performing for each other." Malcolm looked around at the families and couples and friends just enjoying their meals. "This is how most people live. No spotlight, no cameras, no audience." "It seems peaceful." "It is, most of the time." As they ate, Vivian found herself relaxing. Malcolm told her about his brother Eli, who was protective and stubborn and studying to be a nurse. About his job at the hotel, which he genuinely enjoyed because he was good at helping people feel safe. "What about you?" he asked. What do you like about your job? The real parts, not the press release version. Vivian thought about it. I like solving problems, building things that didn't exist before, making decisions that matter. She paused. I just wish I could do it without feeling like I'm performing all the time. So stop performing. It's not that simple. There are expectations. Whose expectations? The question stopped, her cold. Whose expectations indeed? Her mother's? The board's? Society's? Or had she internalized all of those voices until she couldn't tell the difference between what other people wanted and what she thought she should want? As they got ready to leave, Vivian overheard a conversation from the next table. That's the woman from the news, the CEO who dumped her rich fiancé for the security guard. He's probably just after her money. What a gold digger. Vivian's first instinct was to freeze, to pretend she hadn't heard. But something inside her snapped. She turned around calmly. Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. He's not a gold digger. If anyone's the problem in this situation, it's me, not him. The couple looked mortified. Oh, we didn't realize. We weren't talking about. Yes, you were, and you're wrong. But that's okay. You don't know us. She walked out with Malcolm beside her, her heart pounding but her head held high. That was something, Malcolm said, once they were outside. Was it stupid? It was brave. There's a difference. But as they walked to the car, they discovered a photographer's car blocking the exit from the parking lot. Malcolm calmly led them out a different way, on foot, taking a route through quiet side streets that avoided the main roads. How did you know about that route? Vivian asked. I know this neighborhood. I grew up around here. He paused. Sometimes it helps to know the back ways. Vivian realized that Malcolm had been protecting her all evening without making a big deal about it. He'd chosen the restaurant carefully. He'd positioned himself to watch the room. He'd had an escape plan ready. Not because he was paranoid, but because he was smart and experienced and genuinely cared about her safety. You're good at this, she said. Good at what? Taking care of people. Malcolm was quiet for a moment. It's what I do. It's who I am. And for the first time since this whole mess started, Vivian felt truly safe. The next morning, her mother was waiting in Vivian's living room. Claudia had a key, of course. She'd always had a key. Just like she'd always had an opinion about every choice Vivian made. We need to talk, Claudia said without preamble. Vivian poured herself coffee, taking her time. Good morning to you too, Mother. Don't be cute. This situation has gone too far. Claudia's voice was sharp with controlled anger. The board is talking about a vote of no confidence. Our biggest investors are concerned. The charity luncheon today is your chance to fix this. By doing what? By appearing with Graham. By showing that you've come to your senses. I have come to my senses. That's the problem. Claudia stood up, towering over Vivian in her perfectly tailored suit. Love doesn't keep companies alive, Vivian. Romance doesn't protect shareholders. You have responsibilities. What about my responsibility to myself? That's a luxury you can't afford, not in your position. The words hit like a physical blow. A luxury. That's what her mother thought of happiness, of choice, of the basic human right to make decisions about her own life. Get out, Vivian said quietly. Excuse me? I said get out. Take your key and your ultimatums and your emotional blackmail and get out of my home. Claudia's face went white. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. After her mother left, Vivian called Malcolm. When he arrived 20 minutes later, he found her sitting on her couch, staring at nothing. You okay? He asked. My mother thinks happiness is a luxury I can't afford. Vivian's voice was hollow. She thinks my feelings don't matter as much as other people's opinions. Malcolm sat down across from her. He didn't try to fix it or minimize it or tell her it would be okay. He just sat with her in the quiet sadness of that truth. I think, Vivian said finally, my mother never wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to be successful. There's a difference. Yeah, Malcolm said softly. There is. They sat together in the silence, and somehow that felt more healing than any advice could have been. The charity luncheon was a trap, and everyone knew it. Sloan had explained it clearly. The event was designed to force a staged reconciliation photo. Graham would be there, looking handsome and wounded. The photographers would be positioned to capture every angle, and Vivian would be expected to smile and play along. I have to go, Vivian told Malcolm as they sat in the car outside the venue. If I don't show, it looks like I'm hiding. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Malcolm adjusted his tie. He'd worn his best suit, knowing he'd be photographed. What's the plan? You stay at a respectful distance. I handle Graham. We get through this without any drama. But the moment they walked into the venue, Vivian knew the trap was worse than she'd thought. Graham was standing right inside the entrance, positioned so that the cameras would catch their reunion. Vivian! He stepped forward with his arms open, forcing her into a public interaction. You look beautiful. The cameras clicked furiously. Graham pulled her into what looked like an affectionate embrace, but his grip on her arms was too tight, too controlling. Smile. He murmured in her ear. Don't embarrass us both. Vivian pulled back, her expression neutral but firm. Hello, Graham. Can we talk, privately? We don't have anything to discuss. Come on. His voice carried just enough volume for the nearby reporters to hear. We've been through too much together to end it like this. He was playing to the cameras, making himself look like the reasonable one, the one willing to forgive and work things out, making her look stubborn and dramatic. From across the room, Vivian could see Malcolm watching. He wasn't moving closer, wasn't inserting himself into the situation, but his presence steadied her. Graham, she said, clearly, loud enough for the reporters to hear. We've talked about this. It's over. One photo, he pressed, for old time's sake. A photographer shouted, Kiss and make up! Another one called out, Show us that smile, Vivian! Vivian felt the familiar pressure to comply, to smooth things over, to give everyone what they wanted. But then she looked at Malcolm again. He wasn't pressuring her. He wasn't performing. He was just there, steady and real. He is not my fiancé anymore, she said clearly. We are not getting back together. I'm sorry if that disappoints anyone, but that's the truth. The room went dead quiet. Then the clicking of camera shutters exploded like machine gun fire. Graham's mask slipped for just a second, and Vivian saw real anger flash in his eyes. You'll regret this, he said quietly. I already regret a lot of things. Being honest isn't one of them. She walked away from him, toward Malcolm, toward the exit, toward whatever came next. But as they drove away from the venue, Vivian's phone started buzzing with notifications. The comments online were brutal. Racist, classist, vicious. They're saying terrible things about you, she told Malcolm, her voice shaking. Malcolm's hands tightened on the steering wheel, but his voice stayed calm. Let me worry about what they say about me. You worry about what you say about yourself. What do you mean? I mean you have a choice. You can let other people's opinions define this story, or you can define it yourself. That night, Vivian sat at her computer and wrote a statement. Not a press release polished by Sloan's team. Not a corporate message approved by the board. Just her truth in her own words. I am not engaged. I am choosing my life. I'm sorry if that makes anyone uncomfortable, but I'm done apologizing for being human. She stared at the words for a long time before hitting post. The backlash was immediate and intense. But so was something else, support. Messages from women who said they'd been in similar situations. Comments from people who admired her honesty, a few major investors who said they respected her integrity. The story was changing, slowly, but it was changing. That evening, Malcolm finally told her why he was so determined not to be anyone's prop. Few years ago, I was seeing this woman, Sarah. Her family had money, old money. When her parents found out about me, they made her choose. Vivian listened without interrupting. She chose them, but she couldn't just break up with me like a normal person. She had to make me the villain. Told them I was aggressive, possessive, dangerous. Got me fired from my job. Had her friends spread rumors. That's horrible. The worst part wasn't losing her. It was losing myself for a while. Started believing maybe I was all the things they said I was. Vivian felt something break open in her chest. I would never do that to you. You say that now, but when the pressure really starts, when your whole world is telling you to come to your senses, then I'll need you to remind me who I am underneath all that noise. Malcolm looked at her for a long moment. What if I can't? What if the pressure is too much for both of us? Then we'll find out together. The next day, Malcolm took her to see real Manhattan, not the Manhattan of galas and boardrooms, but the Manhattan of normal people living normal lives. They walked through a quiet park. They bought coffee from a cart. They sat on a bench and watched people feed pigeons. This is nice, Vivian said. What's nice about it? No one's watching us. No one cares what we're doing or what it means or how it looks. She turned to face him. It's just peaceful. Most of life is like this, quiet moments that don't make headlines. I'd forgotten that. As they walked back to the car, a young woman approached with her phone out. OMG, you're Vivian Hart. Can I get a selfie? Before Vivian could respond, the woman looked at Malcolm and her expression changed. And this must be your friend. The way she said friend made it clear she thought something else entirely. Actually, Vivian said calmly, this is Malcolm. And no, you can't have a selfie. But thank you for asking. The woman looked shocked. But I follow you on Instagram. I'm a fan. Then respect my boundaries. As they walked away, Malcolm shook his head. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. She was being disrespectful to you. I can handle disrespect. But you shouldn't have to, not when you're with me. That evening, as they sat in Malcolm's car outside her building, something shifted between them. The air felt charged, electric. Vivian, Malcolm said softly. She turned to face him, and suddenly they were very close. Close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough that she could feel his breath on her face. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't pull away. She met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, real. Nothing like the desperate kiss at the gala. This was a choice, not an escape. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. If we do this, Malcolm said, it can't be pretend. I don't want pretend anymore, Vivian whispered. I want real. But even as she said it, her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Board meeting moved up. Tomorrow morning, emergency vote. The real world was crashing in again, threatening to destroy this fragile, beautiful thing they were building. The next evening, Malcolm invited her to dinner with his family. Just me? Vivian asked. No security, no driver, no Sloan? Just you. Can you handle that? Vivian thought about it. When was the last time she'd gone anywhere without an entourage? When was the last time she'd just been herself? Not CEO Vivian Hart, not billionaire's daughter Vivian Hart, just Vivian. I'd like to try. Malcolm's apartment was smaller than her walk-in closet, but it felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. His brother Eli was there, protective and skeptical. But dinner was warm, real conversation about real things. Vivian helped clear the table, listened to Eli talk about nursing school, shared stories about her work that had nothing to do with money or status. You're different than I expected, Eli said finally. Different how? Less, he searched for the word, shiny. Vivian laughed. Thanks, I think. But as they were getting ready for dessert, Sloane texted. Found something. Call me ASAP. Then another text. Evidence Graham's team leaked original video. This was planned. Vivian's blood went cold. Graham had orchestrated the whole thing. The leaked emails, the timing, maybe even positioning the cameras to catch her moment of desperation. But before she could process that information fully, her phone exploded with notifications. A new video was trending, edited clips that made it look like Malcolm had whispered in her ear right before the kiss, like he had planned the whole thing, like he had manipulated her. The comments were vicious. He set her up. Gold digger. She's being played. Vivian's mother called, screaming. The board chair texted about an emergency vote. Her whole world was collapsing again. And in that moment of panic, surrounded by all the noise and pressure and fear, Vivian hesitated. She looked at Malcolm with something like doubt in her eyes. Just for a second, just long enough for him to see it. And Malcolm, who had been hurt before by someone who claimed to love him, who had been thrown under the bus to protect someone else's reputation, read that hesitation exactly the way she was afraid he would. As the old story repeating itself, as her choosing her safe, privileged world over him. I should go, he said quietly. Malcolm, wait. But he was already reaching for his jacket, already shutting down, already protecting himself from the pain he could see coming. Thanks for dinner, he told Eli. Then, to Vivian. Good luck with your board meeting. He walked out, leaving Vivian standing in his brother's kitchen, holding her phone full of lies and threats and the sound of her perfectly constructed life falling apart. For the second time in a week, she'd lost something real because she'd been too scared to fight for it. But this time, she knew exactly what she was losing, and she knew exactly what she had to do to get it back. Vivian stood outside Malcolm's apartment building for a full minute after he left, the sound of his door closing echoing in her chest like a physical pain. Then she forced herself to walk to the car, to drive home, to face whatever came next. But sleep didn't come that night. She lay in her enormous bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Malcolm's face when he saw her hesitate. The hurt that flashed in his eyes, the way he shut down, protecting himself from another betrayal. She'd done exactly what his ex had done. When the pressure got too intense, when the world demanded she choose sides, she'd faltered. For just 1 second, but that second was enough. At 4 a.m, she gave up on sleep and called him. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again at 5, then 6. Nothing. Malcolm had been awake all night too. He sat at his kitchen table, nursing cold coffee, watching the sun come up over the city. Eli found him there when he got up for his early shift at the hospital. Rough night? Eli asked, though the answer was written all over Malcolm's face. She hesitated, Malcolm said quietly. When everything hit the fan, when her whole world was coming for her, she looked at me like maybe I really was the problem. Eli sat down across from him. I told you this would happen. Yeah, you did. Rich people don't change, man. When push comes to shove, they protect their money and their reputation. Everyone else is expendable. Malcolm stared into his coffee. She's not like that. Isn't she? When it mattered most, when she had to choose between you and her comfortable life, what did she do? Malcolm didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know what Vivian would choose. Last night, she'd looked scared and overwhelmed and very, very young. But scared people made bad choices. Overwhelmed people ran back to what felt safe. And Malcolm Reed had never been anyone's safe choice. I'm going to work, he said finally. Mal, I'm fine. I'll be fine. But as he walked to the hotel that morning, Malcolm's phone stayed silent, and that silence said everything he needed to know. Vivian stood in her bathroom at 7 a.m., staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hand shook as she reached for her engagement ring, still sitting on the counter where she'd left it weeks ago. She picked it up, feeling its weight. All that history, all those expectations, all those plans that had never been hers. She walked to her bedroom and opened the top drawer of her dresser. Inside were silk, scarves, expensive jewelry, trinkets from a life that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. She placed the ring inside and closed the drawer firmly. "I won't be owned," she whispered to her reflection. It felt like a promise, a vow, the first real commitment she'd made to herself in years. 20 minutes later, Sloane arrived with coffee and grim determination. "I've been up all night," Sloane said, spreading papers across Vivian's coffee table, tracing the source of that edited video. Vivian sat down slowly. "What did you find?" Timestamps from the hotel's original security footage, messages between Graham's assistant and the gossip blogger, bank transfers. Sloane's voice was flat with anger. Graham orchestrated everything, the leaked emails, the timing of the video, probably even the photographer placement at the gala. Vivian stared at the evidence. "He planned this from the beginning." "Looks like it. The question is, what do you want to do about it?" Vivian's first instinct was fury. She wanted to destroy Graham the way he'd tried to destroy her. Expose his manipulation, ruin his reputation, make him pay. But then she thought about Malcolm, sitting alone in his apartment, believing she was just another rich woman who would throw him away when things got hard. "We're not going nuclear," she said finally. "We're going to tell the truth, simply and honestly, and then we're going to move on." Sloane looked surprised. "Viv, we have him dead to rights. We could make this about revenge, or we could make this about building something real." Vivian stood up, feeling stronger than she had in hours. "I'm done letting Graham control my story." An hour later, her mother called. "I heard about the board meeting," Claudia said without preamble. "Emergency session this afternoon. They're talking about a vote of no confidence." "I know. This has gone too far, Vivian. If you expose Graham now, you'll humiliate both our families. Is that really worth some infatuation?" Vivian felt the familiar pressure to give in, to smooth things over, to protect everyone's feelings but her own. "You already humiliated me, Mother, when you sold me to Graham like a business asset, when you chose his family's money over my happiness, when you told me my feelings were a luxury I couldn't afford. I was protecting you. No, you were protecting yourself, your reputation, your social standing, your version of what my life should look like." Vivian's voice was calm but firm. "I'm done being your puppet." She hung up before Claudia could respond. Then she opened a new text message to Malcolm. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment. I froze. "I'm sorry. I'm choosing you." But before she hit send, she deleted it. Words weren't enough. She had to act first. She had to prove she meant it. The boardroom felt like a courtroom, 12 faces staring at her across the polished table, some concerned, some disappointed, some openly hostile. Her mother sat at the far end, elegant and ice cold. Vivian had come alone. No Sloane to speak for her, no lawyers to negotiate, no Graham to stand beside her with his practiced smile, just her and the truth. "The engagement is over," she said simply. "Not paused, not under review, over. I will not be coerced into a marriage that serves everyone's interests except mine." Mr. Peterson leaned forward. "Vivian, the company's stock has dropped 8 points since the scandal began. Our investors are concerned." "Our investors should be concerned about quarterly profits and market strategy, not my personal life." "Your personal life became public when you created a scene at your own engagement party." Vivian nodded. "You're right. I made a scene. I made a choice. I ended something that was never real to begin with." A younger board member spoke up. "The optics are terrible. A billionaire CEO dumping her respectable fiancé for a hotel security guard? It looks impulsive, irresponsible." "What looks irresponsible," Vivian said calmly, "is staying in a relationship that was arranged for business purposes. What looks impulsive is marrying someone I don't love to protect other people's comfort." The room went quiet. I understand if you want to call a vote of no confidence, Vivian continued. But before you do, I want you to understand something. I will resign before I let anyone trade me like property again. But I won't resign voluntarily. I built this company. I earned this position, and I will not give it up because I chose honesty over performance. Mrs. Chen, the older board member who had always been quietly supportive, spoke for the first time. In 30 years of board service, she said slowly, I've watched CEOs make terrible decisions to protect their personal reputations. I've seen leaders lie to shareholders, manipulate earnings, and throw employees under the bus to save face. What I haven't seen is someone risk everything to be authentic. She paused. I'm not sure that's a weakness. The discussion that followed was heated but brief. When the votes were counted, the result was closer than Vivian had expected. Not a ringing endorsement, but not a defeat either. She kept her job, for now. Walking out of that building, her hands shaking from adrenaline, Vivian pulled out her phone and dialed Malcolm's number. It rang 4 times. Then his voice, flat and careful. Hello? Please, she said. Just 5 minutes. I need to explain. A long pause. Where? Your building. I'll come to you. No cameras. No cameras, just me. Another pause. 5 minutes. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of Malcolm's apartment building as Vivian stood in the small lobby. She'd come alone. No driver, no security, no Sloan hovering nearby with damage control. Just her, in jeans and a simple sweater, looking more like a regular person than a billionaire CEO. Malcolm appeared in the stairwell door, still wearing his hotel uniform from work. He looked tired, guarded, but he was there. You came, he said. I said I would. They stood there for a moment, not quite knowing how to bridge the distance between them. I hesitated, Vivian said finally. Last night, when everything was falling apart, I hesitated, and you saw it. Malcolm nodded. Yeah, I saw it. I was scared. I've been trained my whole life to protect the brand, not the heart. When the pressure gets intense, my first instinct is still to choose what's safe over what's real. I know. I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm learning how to be different, but I need help. I need someone who won't let me hide behind my money or my reputation or my fear. She met his eyes. I need you. Malcolm was quiet for a long time. I can't be your secret, Vivian. I can't be something you choose only when it's convenient. I won't be your phase. Then don't be. The words came out fierce and immediate. Let me prove it's real. Let me show you I'm choosing you, not just rejecting them. Malcolm studied her face, looking for cracks in her resolve. How? One walk, just us. No cameras, no story, no performance. Just 2 people who want to figure out if this thing between us is worth fighting for. He looked at her for what felt like forever. Then he nodded. One walk. They walked through the same park where they'd had their first real conversation. The sun was setting, painting everything golden. The city noise faded to a gentle hum around them. If we do this for real, Malcolm said, what does it look like? Vivian thought about it. Honest. Complicated. Probably messy sometimes. Your family will hate it. Some of them already do. I can't control that. The press will never leave us alone. We'll figure out boundaries, together. Malcolm stopped walking and turned to face her. What do you want from me, Vivian? Really want? It was such a simple question, but no one had ever asked her that before. Not her mother, not. Graham, not the board. What did she want? I want time with you. Real time, not scheduled appearances. I want to know what makes you laugh, what makes you angry, what you dream about when you can't sleep. She paused. I want someone who sees me, not my bank account or my company or my potential usefulness. I think that's you. What if your board fires you? What if you lose everything? Then I'll lose everything, but I won't lose myself again. A rustling in the nearby trees made them both turn. Eli stepped out from behind a cluster of oak trees, looking sheepish. Following us? Malcolm asked, not entirely surprised. Making sure she's not recording this conversation for her lawyers, Eli said, but his tone was less hostile than before. Vivian looked directly at Eli. I won't ask Malcolm to choose between me and his dignity. I won't ask him to be anyone other than who he is, and I won't disappear when things get hard. You disappeared last night. I froze. For 1 second, I let fear win. It won't happen again. Eli studied her face. You sure about that? No. I'm not sure about anything except that I want to try. And I want to try with him. She looked at Malcolm. If he'll let me. Malcolm was quiet for a moment. Then he stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. If we do this, he said softly, we do it in daylight. No hiding, no apologizing for being together. No pretending it's something other than what it is. What is it? Two people who found something real in the middle of a mess. He leaned down and kissed her then. Slow, soft, deliberate. Not desperate like the gala kiss. Not tentative like the kiss in the car. This was a choice, a promise, a beginning. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Tomorrow, Vivian said. Let's do this in daylight tomorrow. The next morning, Vivian woke up calmer than she'd felt in weeks. She called Malcolm early. There's a cafe on 5th Avenue. Nothing. Fancy, but it's public. Neutral ground. A few reporters might show up, but we can control the narrative. You want to make a statement? I want to be honest. With them, with ourselves, with anyone who's watching. No script? No script, just the truth. An hour later, they sat at a small table outside the cafe, morning sunlight warming their faces. Vivian had called ahead to let 2 trusted reporters know they'd be there. Not a press conference, just an opportunity for honest conversation. When the reporters arrived, they were respectful, professional. They asked direct questions and listened to the answers. Is the engagement officially over? One asked. Yes, Vivian said simply. It ended the night of the gala. We weren't right for each other. Are you and Malcolm dating? Vivian looked at him, then back at the reporter. We're getting to know each other. He's someone I care about very much. Was this a publicity stunt? Malcolm answered that one. It started as panic. It became truth. What's next for both of you? We're taking it one day at a time, Vivian said, like any normal couple would. The interview was brief, honest, unremarkable, exactly what Vivian had hoped for. But as they were getting ready to leave, a familiar voice called out behind them. Vivian! Her mother stood on the sidewalk, elegant and furious. We need to talk, privately. No, Vivian said calmly. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Malcolm. Claudia's face tightened. You're making a mistake. This man will destroy everything we've built. You don't get to own my choices anymore. For a moment, Claudia's mask slipped. Vivian saw something underneath the control, fear, maybe even grief. I thought I was protecting you, Claudia said quietly. You were protecting yourself, your version of who I should be, your idea of what success looks like. Vivian's voice was gentle but firm. I love you, Mother, but I won't live my life for your approval anymore. Claudia stood there for a moment, looking older and smaller than Vivian had ever seen her. Then she nodded once and walked away. That afternoon, Graham called. I want to meet, he said, just to talk, close this chapter properly. Vivian almost said no, but she realized she wanted closure too. Not for Graham's sake, but for her own. They met at a hotel lounge downtown. Neutral territory, public enough to be safe. Sloane sat at the bar nearby, not interfering but present. Graham looked good. He always looked good. Polished, successful, perfect on paper. "I wanted to apologize," he said once they were seated, "for how things ended." Vivian studied his face. "Do you mean that?" "I think we could have made it work, if you'd given us a real chance. Graham, you leaked my private emails to manipulate me into that engagement party. You orchestrated the video that made Malcolm look calculating. You tried to destroy both of us to get what you wanted." For just a second, his mask slipped. "You have no proof of that." "Actually, I do. Timestamps, messages, bank transfers. Sloan is very thorough." Graham's jaw tightened. "What do you want? Money to keep quiet? An apology? What's your price?" Vivian almost laughed. Even now, he thought everything could be bought and sold. "I want nothing from you, Graham. I just want you to leave us alone." "Us?" His voice turned ugly. "You're really gonna throw away everything for a security guard?" "I'm going to build something real, with someone who sees me as more than a business opportunity." Graham leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "This won't last. When the novelty wears off, when the press gets bored, when your friends start talking, you'll remember why you chose me." Vivian stood up calmly. "I'm done being scared of what people think. Do whatever you want, Graham. I'm not running anymore." She walked away, leaving him sitting alone with his anger and his schemes. That night, Malcolm came to her apartment, not for the penthouse glamour or the expensive view, but because she'd asked him to see the space where she lived, where she was learning to be herself. "This is where I put the engagement ring," she said, showing him the closed drawer. "That life is over." Malcolm nodded. "Then let's build the new one slowly." 3 days later, after several quiet dates, dinners where they talked until the restaurants closed, a movie at her apartment where they fell asleep on the couch together, long walks where they shared stories about their childhoods, Vivian decided to host a small gathering. Not a gala or a society event, just a simple weekend brunch for the people who mattered. Sloan arrived first, bringing bagels and coffee and her usual efficiency. Malcolm came with Eli, who was still protective but warming up gradually. Mrs. Chen from the board stopped by, curious and kind. Vivian had attempted to cook something, scrambled eggs that turned out slightly rubbery, bacon that was mostly burned. She laughed at herself, and Malcolm helped salvage breakfast while everyone else pitched in. It felt like a family, a chosen family, built on honesty instead of obligation. Halfway through the meal, her mother called. Vivian looked at the phone, then at Malcolm. "I should take this." "Put it on speaker," he said quietly. "No more secrets." Vivian answered the call with everyone listening. "Vivian," her mother's voice was subdued. "I owe you an apology." "Okay." "I spent so many years trying to protect you from making the wrong choices that I forgot to let you make your own choices. I didn't know how to love you without trying to control you." Vivian felt tears prick at her eyes. "I know you thought you were helping. I want to try again, differently, if you'll let me." "I'd like that, but it has to be on my terms this time." "I understand." It wasn't a complete resolution. There would be more conversations, more boundaries to set, more healing to do, but it was a beginning. After lunch, as their guests were leaving, Malcolm and Vivian stepped out onto her balcony. The city stretched out below them, busy and beautiful and full of possibilities. "I have something to tell you," Vivian said. Malcolm tensed slightly. "What?" "I got a call this morning. Malcolm's supervisor at the hotel called. The management reviewed everything that happened and they've decided not to take any disciplinary action. They said you handled a difficult situation with professionalism and they value that." Malcolm's shoulders relaxed. "Really?" "Really, your job is safe." That's good news." Vivian stepped closer to him, close enough to see the relief in his eyes. This is the part where I kiss you because I want to, not because I'm running away from something. Is it? This one isn't to escape. Malcolm smiled, the first completely unguarded smile she'd seen from him. Good, because I'm not running anywhere. He kissed her then, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Vivian rested her head against his shoulder, looking out at their city. "What happens next?" she asked. "We take it one day at a time," Malcolm said, his arms around her. "No grand plans, no perfect strategies, just us, figuring it out together." That's the first plan I've ever actually wanted. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting everything golden. Somewhere below them, the city hummed with 8 million stories, 8 million people trying to build lives worth living. And on a penthouse balcony, 2 people who had found something real in the middle of a mess stood together, watching their new life begin. Vivian had finally learned the difference between being owned and being loved. And Malcolm had finally found someone who chose him not despite who he was, but because of it. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would be challenges ahead, more pressure from society, more learning to do about each other, more moments when they'd have to choose love over fear. But it was real. And after all the performance and pretense and pressure, real was exactly what they both needed. "I love you," Vivian whispered, the words coming out like a prayer. "I love you too," Malcolm said back. And for the first time in her life, Vivian Hart knew she was exactly where she belonged.